Today I want to share with you a bit of the behind the scenes of how I level up my work as a painter and create paintings I'm proud of. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of thing I talk about on my channel every week. So if that sounds like what you've been looking for, make sure to subscribe for more videos to help you reach your painting goals. All right, so let's talk about this painting and why it's ideal for this discussion on how you can begin to make work you're proud of. So lately, I've been talking a lot about wanting to push my work in a new direction and explore new things. And while I've talked a lot about the mindset that's guided this, today I want to talk about the exact steps that I'm taking. The truth is, I don't think I have some secret natural talent for painting. I just enjoy creating systems so that I can learn and master the things I'm interested in. I did this to learn a second language, to be able to design and sew elaborate dance costumes, and go from a really shy college kid to a competitive Latin ballroom dancer. These are not things that I have a natural knack for. So if you think that deep down I'm just naturally meant to be a painter, well, maybe you're right. I don't know, but it certainly doesn't explain all of the other things that I've taught myself using this approach. Which means that you don't need to be gifted or born lucky to make the kind of paintings you dream of making. You just need to make the right system to identify your goal and give you a proven step-by-step process for reaching it. And when it comes to helping people reach their painting goals, this is what I do every day, so I know this works. And I've seen it over and over again that painting is a teachable process, and having a system to reach your art goals really does get you results. So in this video, I'm going to go deep into it. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to make this painting and the way I tackle these problems. And if that sounds like a great approach for you and you're serious about your goals and you want my personalized feedback and support, make sure to check out the coaching link above and in the description to see if we would be a fit to work together. Okay. So let's talk about this painting and how it fits into my goals and how I got to the place where I could make this. First, I had to identify what I wanted to do with my paintings. I talk about art goals a lot on this channel, and I know I've mentioned this before, but this all starts by spending time looking at the art that inspires you the most, above all else, the art that you yearn to make. So in my case, I started by identifying the artists that I've been most drawn to lately and narrowing down their work to the pieces that stood out the most to me. Lately, I've been looking a lot at Carolyn and Quang and have really loved their paintings of both horses and dancers. These are actually the two original subjects I loved to draw as a kid, and really my original passions as an artist. In fact, I started dancing because I loved other artists' drawing of dancers, and I really loved drawing them as well and just wanted to feel more connected to them. And these two artists really take the subjects to a new level. And I could feel just how much I wanted to make work like this. I could stare at these pieces for hours, and they had something about them that made me feel, well, like they were realer than real almost, like a heightened state of seeing or experiencing. But that's not exactly an actionable quality. So the next step is that I really needed to get clear on exactly what the tangible characteristics were of these paintings such that they could create that experience. When we're talking about realism, those experiences can be broken down into very simple, discrete categories. Subjects, colors, drawing, values, composition, brushwork, and edges. And honestly, it even goes simpler than that because you can think of brushwork and edges as being the same, and similarly, you can think of subjects being a part of compositions. It's interesting, I talk to painters often, and sometimes they're really surprised at how simple and maybe unsexy this way of breaking down paintings is. But at the end of the day, there really is no secret sauce or magic bullet. There is no mystical concept that's between you and the paintings you want to make. So when you're in a workshop or you're in an art class and you're talking about value for the 1,000th time and you feel like you're really over it, well, that's probably one of the things that's between you and the paintings you want to make. It's not that you don't understand value, but you're not using value in the way your favorite painters do. So let's talk about what this looks like in action, starting with what are the qualities of each of these categories I mentioned that I was drawn to in these pieces. Above, I'm going to show you what these pieces were, or at least a sampling of them. They're a combination of Carolyn Anderson's work and Quang Ho's work, and I'm going to make sure to include links to both of their web pages so that you can explore more of these on your own. They're super beautiful, so definitely check them out and enjoy them in their full-size glory. Well, first off, the subjects are dancers and horses, which I think have a lot in common, actually. They're known for creating interesting lines and shapes. They're very expressive and evoke a strong sense of movement. Okay, so that's straightforward enough. What about the compositions? I know for myself that I tend to like paintings that feel more intimate, less busy. No multi-figure compositions, no complex backgrounds. So paintings that are big in scope, that have a ton of figures in them, or feature a sweeping landscape are probably going to feel overwhelming to me and not like what I'm excited to paint. So now we've talked about composition, including subject. Let's move on to drawing. In terms of drawing, this is where I think it gets interesting. While these drawings are anatomically correct, they actually omit a lot of information. So these paintings I'm interested in almost read as gestures or depictions meant to evoke the subject rather than poring over every detail. So I need to get my anatomy on point, but avoid getting drawn into teeny tiny shapes. And here's where I think it gets even more interesting. To help us do this, these pieces really focus on compressing values and color harmonies so that ultimately we can lose a lot of the edges. A lot of the paintings I'm interested in are high key and tend toward being almost monochromatic. When there's just less contrast in the values and the color, it's easy for those unnecessary details in the drawing to disappear. It's easy to have an interesting variety of hard, soft, and lost edges. And now, suddenly, I've taken a pretty nebulous description about what I love about these paintings, and now have a tangible list of qualities that I need to build into my paintings if I want them to come out in a way that really meshes with the kinds of work I'm drawn to. Okay, but how does this translate into a plan to make paintings like that? So here's where it gets tricky. I looked at the pieces I wanted to make, and they were highly impressionistic and evocative, which is to say, they were not literal. This to me felt like the toughest version of a common question or problem that artists approach me with, which is, how can I create abstract or impressionistic or loose realism? A lot of the time after painters have been working a while, they become less interested in tightness or photorealism and want to bring more looseness into their work. But the trouble is, it almost seems to fly in the face of the classic advice that painters receive to paint what you see, not what you know, or what you think you see. When we paint what we see, it's easy to go tighter, provided your vision literally allows for it. We simply don't see crazy brush marks when we walk out into the world. We don't see photorealism either, but what we see, or specifically what our eye fixates on, has a really high degree of detail and rendering and tightness. Now, objects in our periphery do actually appear really soft, but the problem is that as soon as we go to paint those objects, our eye switches focus to them, and suddenly those are all in focus too. So it really does take a lot of practice in order to back off of this impulse and let yourself capture impressions of these objects without getting too tight. Okay. But what do we do about this in the meantime? And specifically, how do we paint what we're seeing without getting so tight? Or another way to ask this might be, how do we paint what we're seeing while also exaggerating to the point of potentially inventing as we go? This was definitely on my mind with this painting, not only because of how loose I wanted the brushwork, but also because of how compressed the values and colors were toward something warm and high key. I simply wasn't going to venture out and see this. I'd have to interpret what I was seeing so far that I'd push into the realm of invention. So what do we do as painters when this comes up? Well, we learn from the masters. If I want to understand how Sargent creates clean, decisive brushwork, or Fetchin creates a beautiful variety of textures, or how Schmid can create paintings that look so wet with paint without making a mess all over the canvas, the easiest way forward is to create master studies of their work. Literally, walk in their shoes. Okay, maybe not literally walking in their shoes, but literally go through the motions that they went through with their palette and their brush on their canvas. So if I wanted to learn how to compress my values, the easiest way forward would be for me to do a value study of my favorite high key or impressionistic paintings. Or if I want to create strong color harmonies, I can do a color study of some of these amazing monochromatic paintings that I've just shared. Okay, maybe they're not monochromatic. I think technically we would call these tonal studies because there is some color variation, but the idea is that they're all based around a really tight, cohesive, singular color harmony. So going through the physical motions of your favorite artists can help you understand how they make the decisions that make their best works possible. So even if you aren't there to see them paint the piece in person, or you don't know what their reference looked like, over time, you will understand how they thought, and you can begin to apply that new skill to your paintings too. Thankfully, for this piece, I could watch one of these artists work. I went over to Quang Ho's website, Made for Artists, and signed up to watch one of his demo videos on painting color harmonies and took notes on what I learned. And with this research behind me, the next step was to actually plan my first piece. I looked for a reference that had all of the qualities I described above and created a mock-up I would paint from. I tested out various compositions, colors, value patterns, until I knew exactly what my final painting would look like, and I could jump in with full confidence that I would like that final product. I talk a lot about this in my recent video about why planning is so important to a successful painting. So I'll link that video above in case you haven't checked it out yet, but it talks in depth about what this process looks like, how I use it, and how you can use it too. And finally, with this planning done, it's time to paint. This I tried to keep as approachable as possible since I was trying something new. I picked the subject I was most excited about and confident in. In this case, I know she's not dancing, but this is a shot of a dancer relaxing between rehearsals. So we can kind of tell she's in a leotard. She has her shrug wrapped around her waist. She has leg warmers on. And I just really liked the light and the gesture and the energy of this, even though it's quite relaxed and still not your traditional dance pose. So with a subject in mind that I was excited about, the next thing I did was to pick a canvas size that I thought would just feel quick and fun instead of a painting that I would slave away on for days on end because my canvas was so large. I told myself that if this painting absolutely fails, the worst that'll happen is that I'm out a 6x8 panel and an hour or so of my time. And that was a price I was happy to pay for the chance to just play around and learn. And after I've done that, after I've played around and learned and saw what came of this painting, the next step, the next thing I'm going to do after this video goes out is repeat. So with this piece done, my plan is to make an entire little series of these. They're meant to be low-stakes explorations. I'll certainly fail with some of them. I'm sure of that. If I don't, it means I'm probably not pushing very hard. But the goal is to start building my own muscle memory and sense of how this will shape the way I work and give me some confidence in that. And after doing that little series, I can start to branch out. And what I know I'll find is that I no longer feel like I'm studying these other artists. Now I'm just working like me. I will have integrated this into the other ways I like to work, and I can take that and run with it. And one thing I'm going to be certain to keep in mind during this exploration is being kind and playful in this process as much as possible. Let me explain what on earth I mean by that. So I was listening to a TED Talk today where the speaker talked about how constant critiquing can lead to imposter syndrome. And no one knows constant critique quite like artists do. Whether we are in school or self-taught, we are constantly evaluating our work in order to identify problems, make a more realistic depiction of what we're painting, or just make sure that we are making progress and improving toward our goals. And that takes a toll. And this is why I think it's important, especially when we're trying to reach big goals, to first be generous and kind in your critiques, and second, to play often. So here's what I mean. If you're being generous or kind in critique, this is what that looks like. Okay, well, I didn't achieve the likeness I was going for in this portrait. I think that's because the proportion of the eyes relative to the nose is a bit off. And instead of flying into self-criticism or asking why you just can't get this right, you acknowledge the things you did well. You acknowledge the progress you made in this piece. Do you see how this is kind, but it's not like you're going soft on yourself? It's not you doing yourself a disservice by holding back on things that are going to be constructive. You know, the whole idea of being constructive is to build yourself up. If we are only ever focused on tearing down the things that we aren't happy with, well, that would be destructive critique, not constructive critique. The truth is that identifying your strengths and how you can use those to build momentum is just as helpful as identifying what felt weak in a particular painting session. And then there's play. I see play as a painting where you aren't trying to push or improve or do something hard, but a piece where you can turn off the critical, constructive part of your brain and just do something fun. This can look like a lot of things. In some ways, this piece was not play because I was actively pushing myself and thinking really actively during this painting to figure out how I could shift the way that I work. But in other ways, this painting was absolutely play. I chose an approachable size that felt low stakes, a subject I knew I would like, and a style where I wouldn't get bogged down in detail and tedium, which are two of the things that really easily put me into a state of perfectionism instead of play. And with that, I'm excited to go forward. If you want to work with me to put this system to work for you and get my guidance every step of the way, make sure to check out the link in the description because I would love to hear from you. If you'd like to take this piece home or see other paintings I have available, I've also included a link in the description to that as well. As always, if you found this video helpful or it was just what you needed to hear today, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. And until next time, happy painting.